Hey guys, what's up? It's your man Pete, and it's time for a November market update. So the Toronto real estate market could not be any more boring and predictable as it is right now. I think I'm about to start hibernating soon, as we're only seeing low single-digit increases in terms of price appreciation, but double-digit declines in terms of sales transactions, which basically means that not a lot of deals are getting done. However, prices are still holding strong. But we'll talk more about what the numbers mean and where you should be placing your bets if you are a potential buyer in this market, and why it's not necessarily all bad news all across the board. So stay tuned and we'll talk more about that right after this, guys. Okay, so look, I am a contrarian by nature. It's just the way I'm built. Or maybe it's the influence of people like Warren Buffett or Ben Graham, who I've been studying since I was in my early 20s. Or maybe I just don't like following the rules. I don't know, take your pick. But Toronto real estate does behave like stocks sometimes, or even the fashion industry, where something can be hot one season and then ice cold another season. And I know I've been talking about it for years with my clients and my audience here on Selling Toronto. I hope you guys have been paying attention. But just to recap how the Toronto market has been over the last 15 to 20 years, so in the early 2000s, condos were the big thing. Now, it wasn't necessarily a proven thing yet because people were like, how can we live in such small little boxes in the sky when we're used to things that are attached to the ground like bungalows? But the thing about condos in the early 2000s were that they were so cheap, you could still buy them brand new for under $200,000 in the downtown core. And of course, there were favorable purchase terms at the time in terms of minimum deposits and down payments with developers. And then you didn't have to get the mortgage until a few years later. But then fast forward almost a decade later, after the US housing collapse in 2008, that's when people started buying larger properties. So detached homes, semi-detached properties, because demographically speaking, Gen Xers were having families, they were growing, and they needed more space. And that buying activity pretty much got us to where we are today, where average home prices have soared way past $1 million here in Toronto, and condos are reaching $1,000 per square foot, and it got to the point where banks were starting to get scared of these valuations, and that's why OSFI had to jump in and implement their stiff stress tests to make sure our financial system doesn't have a complete meltdown like they did in the US. And in the last few Toronto Real Estate Board reports, they really pointed to the fact that people are buying smaller and less expensive properties, such as condos, condo townhouses, and townhouses, which makes sense in bringing price down to low single digits. It doesn't mean people are not buying. That's definitely not the case. So if the Toronto numbers and figures are not really knocking your socks off lately, that's probably the reason why. Because the transactions are really concentrated in that smaller category right now, and it might be this way for some time in the foreseeable future. Until you guessed it, detached homes come back in style again. However, I do predict that it will be tougher this time around because home prices are just astronomical for detached properties already, and prices are still holding up pretty well. We're not really seeing sellers drastically dropping their prices just to get the deal done. And of course, lenders are also a little bit more hesitant to lend on larger properties. But then again, there's an opportunity. If you had trouble buying a detached property the first time around, you'll definitely find it a lot easier this time around. With more choice, less bidding competition, and who knows, maybe you'll be able to finally buy in the neighborhood that you always wanted to buy in, and to buy the house that's already finished, where if you were gaining just a few % per year, you're definitely not losing. You know, you're staying ahead of inflation. It's definitely better than putting the money in the bank, right? So overall, this market that we are in right now is really all about sifting out the speculators and the investors. They're not active. They're definitely trying to sell and offload right now, which leaves only the true buyers who really need to purchase a place left on the table. And that's usually a good sign for a true balanced market. And it truly goes against the idea that we have a shortage of homes. The fact is, we don't have a shortage of homes. It was really just a lot of investors buying and hoarding properties and not making them available for home buyers. But it just really comes down to price and whether you're going to be able to afford it and get the mortgage to close the deal. And let's be clear here, guys, when I talk about investors and speculators, we're not only talking about foreign money. We have a lot of people here locally who did very well in their properties, and they turned their home into 2, 3, 4, 5 different properties, or they maybe speculated and bought in the pre-construction condo game as well too. So we have a really significant portion of that investment money locally here. Let's be clear about that, guys. But as of now, I'll tell you there's not a lot of excitement going on in the Toronto real estate market. If you're looking for exciting numbers, you'd probably better watch these guys, or even these guys over here, because these guys are putting up some serious numbers right now. The good news right now is that the Bank of Canada didn't raise interest rates here right at the end of the year. So that's a positive sign because the economic outlook isn't as strong as expected. But fully anticipate that there will be some small rate increases next year, and factor those into your numbers when you're looking to buy something. And of course, the stress tests will still be there. So thanks for watching, guys, and if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so. Make sure you turn on the notifications so that you know when I post a new video. I don't always post them at the same time. I'm sorry for that. I'm busy. I got a family. I got a business to run. You know what I mean. But we'll see you guys in my year-end wrap-up video in early January, where I also usually do predictions for what I think is going to happen in the coming year. So make sure you keep following me. Lots of big things to come for Selling Toronto in 2019 so that I can keep helping y'all make better real estate decisions.
Leonard, the rebound. 9 boards for Leonard to the rim. Kawhi Leonard gets them out of their seats. And the Raptors have blown this one open.
Swish.